Hey everyone, it's Clint. Welcome to Sweetcast. No, this is not a stack of comic books today. This is a stack of novels today. But I wanted to talk about what it takes to make a professional writer or somebody that you trust. And so I have some theories on this. But of course, I want to hear what you have to say in the comments down below. Do let me know. And I'll go over my thesis here on Cormac McCarthy. Before we get into the video, though, don't forget to check out why not Downcast 3 first. That's on Indiegogo right now, in the link in the description below. And I'm expecting it to ship from the printer this week. That's what they're saying. And so I am waiting eagerly to get those books. As soon as I get them, it is going to be a madhouse around here, and I'll be shipping books. It'll be a really happy day. And then also Fatal on Indiegogo as well. I've seen some really great progress from Charlie, so do check that out as well. All right, so Cormac McCarthy. Here are 4 books from Cormac McCarthy. I went through this phase of just, I don't know, fanboying over Cormac McCarthy. And it started with this book, The Road, because the movie came out and people said they liked the movie, and I thought, I'm going to read the book. And I read the book, and it was extremely dark and extremely sad. And the whole time during the book, you think there's something else to this. And I don't know, I think it was a combination of things, but one was how he wrote, and he had a very clear method to how he writes novels that you kind of see throughout. But because of that, there's almost like more trust that I have in him as an author. Like, I will sit back and I'm thinking, what is it that Cormac McCarthy is trying to say here with this novel? And it ended up getting me into more highbrow conversations and thought pathways just because of the way he wrote. Now, is he more intelligent than your average writer? Maybe not. I mean, maybe that's all part of the facade. Maybe he's not actually more literary. I've seen arguments for that. But all in all, I still enjoyed it. And I'd find myself going through great lengths to read sometimes very difficult books like this one, Blood Meridian. It got really hard to read at some points in time. But again, it was, what does this mean? The whole thing felt like a parable. And I've got my opinions. I know that they would go over this in like college literature courses, and people came up with what they thought it was about. Tempted to read some of those thoughts, but never did, because I think I've got it figured out now. But I spent so much time thinking about this, staying awake at night, thinking about what it means, and also just, this is a dark book as well. And so how does he do that? I think in a few different ways. I'll just show you the other one. No Country for Old Men is probably my favorite book, honestly, of all of his, because it was just fun to read. Even though it's not going to end well, again, there's still this element of, what does he have to say? And you're sort of putting yourself into his hands and allowing him to give you the experience. Now, how do you get that as a writer? Because I think there are a lot of writers that are very good writers, but I'm, for some reason, not willing to trust them to that degree. And there may be a bit of, the fanfare surrounding a particular author that makes you trust them more. I've seen that in comics. A famous example could be Alan Moore, perhaps, that you because of all of the public, discussion, and they make a big deal out of Alan Moore and his writing, you're automatically more willing to allow him to be a good writer and take you along for a story. But what if you don't have that? What do you have that does that? And I think part of this is actually style. And it's easy to talk about style in art, because it's so obvious and people can see it and you can dissect it and things like that. But style in writing is massively important. People often call it voice. But there's also things like this. Like right here, for example, in Blood Meridian, page 26, you can see that there's dialogue happening. And that dialogue, the only reason you know it's dialogue is because of it being indented and how it's written. How about that drink now? Said the kid. You got the said the kid, but what you're missing is punctuation. There are no quotation marks. And often there's not said the kid. The barman stood. Like, was that spoken or was it action? And so you start getting through it, and this style of having no quotation marks and not very many attributions for who's saying what, it actually makes it for a more lean reading experience. But not only that, but then it makes me think, why is it that this author can break the rules of writing in such a blatant way and we're okay with it? It's bold. And so because he does that, I actually think that adds to his credibility as a writer, because he's consistently sticking to his own set of rules for writing fiction. Then it makes me think that he must be a master. I don't know how it works or why it works, but I think it does. And it's also backed up by some seriously amazing prose. I think he's probably one of the best prose writers that I've read, though, there could be some arguments for sure. But I do like Cormac McCarthy for that reason. But that's just one thing, but it's throughout all of his novels. It's the same thing. Again, here we go. Some more speaking here with no quotation marks. I thank ye, he said. Good, ain't it? Is it? You're welcome. And there's these very short sentences, which is sort of contrasted by his really big, academic almost writing style. And then he'll contrast that with very simple, plain folk language. I don't know how else to say it, but almost everything he writes is a Western or has a Western feel. Even in The Road, it's a very plain language. It's post-apocalyptic, but it's the same sort of thing. And so you get him, you get the very academic speak almost that he does in his, just description of the scenes and everything like that. But then when he comes to dialogue, it's the exact opposite. That's really interesting. Those are stylistic choices. Now, as a writer in comics, it might be easy to think that you don't really have a style, or that the style is that it all has to do with the artist. But I disagree. There are decisions that you can make, and I think if you have a deliberate reason why you're making that decision, when it comes to writing, again, like comparing and contrasting the way that the author's voice is versus the characters' voices are, that means something and can say something, or at least it feels like it does. So there's many others out there. So what I'd like to know is, in comics, if we take this over to comics, how can I apply this? Or maybe what are some very specific tools that you can think of? How do you know something's written by Frank Miller? What choices is he making? What is his style or voice when he's writing? The same could be said about, I don't know, Jeff Johns, will say. What does he do? Scott Snyder, you could think of tropes. You could think of them in that way. But I think when they're doing their job, then it makes you think of it as being less of a trope and, again, more of a stylistic choice. And I guess that maybe it's all up to your own interpretation. But I think it's obvious that some writers do it better than others. That's my point. Anyway, so I'd love to know what you think about this. Tell me if you have an author that has a great style, and maybe if you could describe it in the comment section. It might be hard to do, but I want to look at more of this because first and foremost, I am a writer, and I want to be always improving my writing skills. I think there's a lot that we all can learn from this kind of storytelling that could also be applied to comics. So thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let me know what kind of content you'd like to watch, and I will see you in the next video.